Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. Today, before I get into our main subject, which will probably be a very short Gene Schwimmer, that's me. Gene Schwimmer is vindicated. I told you so. Can I call him or not? When I'm right kind of vlog. But before I get into that, I just want to talk just briefly about the special election last night in the 9th District, North Carolina, that Dan Bishop, the Republican, defeated another Dan McCready. This was supposed to be a referendum on Donald Trump and his presidency. That's how it was being portrayed, at least by the mainstream, so-called mainstream media, that this would be a test of Donald Trump. Well, the Republican won, so suddenly it's not a test of Donald Trump, it's a test of, well, nothing. We have Democrats saying that the victory doesn't really mean anything because it was a smaller margin of victory than the margin by which Trump won in 2016. But what they're missing is that, well, Democrats themselves, some are saying that the reason that Bishop won, he was supposed to be headed to lose, and the reason he won was because of a last-minute campaign stop by Donald Trump to speak in favor of Dan Bishop, and Bishop won. So to me, that is very much a referendum, if you want to use that word, a state referendum on Donald Trump. And if you have a situation where Democrats themselves are admitting that Trump himself was a factor in the Republican pulling it out, then to me, that's a referendum on Trump, and the referendum was, just like I do at the end of my videos and ask you to do, a big old thumbs up. So that's number one. Number two is the margin doesn't really matter. If Trump is reelected by a smaller margin than he was elected in the first place in 2019, the Supreme Court justices that he appoints, those appointments will be just as valid as they would have been had he won by a mile. So now they're trying to minimize the results of that election and say it's not as important as they were saying right up to the election. But imagine what their reaction would have been had the election gone the other way, and if Dan McCready, the Democrat, had won. But what really amused me, I saw on Twitter a couple of liberal Democrats, obvious from their profiles, they were saying that they don't accept the results of the North Carolina election. They think it was rigged. I really think that if you're a liberal Democrat these days, any election that they lose is illegitimate. So if this is how Democrats, at least some Democrats, are reacting to a local congressional race, just imagine how they're going to react if Trump wins in 2020, especially if the margin is small.
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States. President Obama is the ex-president. And Mr. Trump, for the moment, stepped.
So I'm just mentioning that now so you can run out, put in your popcorn orders now. It's unfortunate that in our financial markets we don't have popcorn futures because they're going to soar, just like gun sales have soared since the Democrats have been talking about gun control. I don't want to get off on another subject, but well, maybe it'll be a future video, but it happens all the time. Every time, whenever Democrats talk about gun control, gun sales go up. In fact, I'm thinking of buying, I was in the gun shop the other day. I have a handgun, but I have never wanted an AR-15 or any kind of a modern rifle. I really don't like modern weapons. Nothing against them, it's just that my hobby is black powder. I like antique style weapons. I have the pistol because I need self-defense. That's the only reason that I own it, but I'm not one of these people that's just going to go out to the range and just shoot for pleasure. It would only be to keep my skills up. I mean, the other day I ran through 50 rounds, a box of 50 rounds of 380 auto ammo in about 10, 15 minutes, and that stuff ain't cheap. It's 30 to 40 cents a round, I think. It's pretty way up there. So, as usual, I'm getting off on another subject. Now I want to talk about where I say I told you so. Yesterday I was talking about the firing of John Bolton by Donald Trump, and I said that I think one of the major points of disagreement between the two men was that Bolton recognizes, rightfully, in my opinion, and people can disagree with me in the comments, that we should not accommodate our enemies, that we should not talk to, well, you have to be nice to your friends, to our allies and friends, but definitely for adversaries, the Chinese, but especially Iran and North Korea, you don't talk to them just to talk. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to talk about a negotiation. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail now because you have the video from yesterday. You can listen to that video and watch it where I go into more detail. The only reason I'm mentioning it today is because of this headline. I'm putting it up right now. Pompeo, Mnuchin say no preconditions for Iran meeting as Trump ousts Bolton. And now I'll just read from the article, then you get my comments. Quote, the president has made very clear he is prepared to meet with no preconditions, unquote, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said at a joint press briefing with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin at the White House Tuesday. Asked if he could foresee Trump meeting with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani at the UN General Assembly later this month, Pompeo responded, quote, sure, unquote. Quote, the president has made clear he is happy to take a meeting with no preconditions, but we are maintaining the maximum pressure campaign, unquote, Mnuchin said. So again, I personally am in complete agreement with what I am sure was and is John Bolton's opinion, which is, or his advice to the president, more accurately, not to meet with Rouhani. Because, as I said yesterday, number one, Rouhani is an errand boy. He has no power. If you're going to meet with somebody on the Iranian side, you're going to meet with Ayatollah Khamenei. He is the power. He is the decision maker. You waste your time meeting with anybody else. That's number one. Number two, you perpetuate or you support this delusion that Iran is a democracy with a president like our president who has power in international affairs. He has none. So we should be straightforward about that. And just in general, we should not do anything to help Iran. But the other point against meeting with Iran is that it makes no sense. Trump is going to meet with him to say that for anything to happen, you have to meet these conditions. Just require them to meet the conditions first, or at least require them to publicly state an intention to meet the conditions, or at the very, very least, let them request a meeting. If somebody asks the president a question about meeting with the Iranians, it should not be a response of, oh, I'm happy to meet them anytime with no conditions. If a reporter asks Donald Trump about a potential meeting between Donald Trump and anybody on the Iran side other than Ayatollah Khamenei, Trump's response should be that I've heard no request, I've gotten no such request, and if I do get such a request, it must A, be public, and B, must be made personally by Ayatollah Khamenei, and that I will talk only with Ayatollah Khamenei. And then if it were me, if I were president, I would also throw in that I will meet him at our embassy in Jerusalem and nowhere else. That's really being strong. As I said, I have doubts now about Donald Trump. I don't think he is willing to, if necessary, to attack Iran's nuclear program. I am really worried about Iran getting a bomb because they are breaching the restrictions. I don't see them backing down. Hopefully these sanctions will work, but when you look at what the stakes are, I think those sanctions are going to have to hurt a lot more before Iran backs down and gives up meets all 15 of the points that Pompeo raised, including getting rid of their nuclear program and stopping the financing of Hamas and Hezbollah and all these proxies whom they are financing. I don't see them doing that. I don't see any alternative. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll put it this way. There is an alternative to our having to use force, and actually there are two alternatives. There's an alternative of giving the Israelis all the weapons that they need to deal with Iran's nuclear program, because remember, Israel was not included in the talks. So they are not bound by any agreement at all. So they, even according to this JCPOA, they can attack Iran anytime. The other thing from our point of view is that if you're going to get Iran to relinquish their nuclear program and you don't want to use force, they have to think that we will use force. It has to be a credible threat of force. Without the credible threat of force, the Iranians will not do anything. So that's my word on the subject for today, except to say I told you so. I said what I thought Trump would do, and then we see this headline that he's willing to meet with Iran, with a flunky, with Rouhani, without any conditions, whatever. I don't see anything to be accomplished by such a meeting except that Trump gets a photo op. That's my opinion. Yours is different, perhaps. Or even if you agree with me, there is a comment section below the video. Put your comments in there. But before you do that, thumbs up if you like the video, and then you can put your comments in the comments section. And when you're done doing that, you can subscribe. And when you're done doing that, just get ready to come back for my next video, which I hope will be very soon. And until that time, bye.